This is Non-Monogamous Mark coming to you from my home office in Burien, Washington. And last week, a week ago, I finished a 12-week series, and the series was about the 12 habits of a hero. Every week I talk a little bit about some habits and qualities of a hero. And it really all began a week before I started the series. And I asked you in that video, what have you done today to be your own hero? You know, and I really thought about that myself in the following week after making that video. And I thought about that. There are habits that heroes have that we can develop ourselves so that we can look in the mirror each and every day and say to ourselves that, yes, I am my own hero. Now, the truth of the matter is that, you know, I'm not a perfect person myself. I'm a human being. I'm fallible. And so many of these habits, the 12 habits I've been through for the last 12 weeks with you in these videos, so many of these habits are habits that I am constantly working on myself. It was a lot of fun over the last couple days. I spent some time going through and reviewing all 12 of those videos. And it was just a great reminder to my own self, and it really inspired myself and helped me to grow, and it just helped me want to create and have these habits so that they are habitual habits in my own life. So what I'm doing here today is I'm going to do a review of those 12 weeks of habits and those videos. And so let's go ahead and start with week one. Now, week one, I start out by asking the question, what habits serve your inner hero? And then typically when in starting out a video, I like to propose a question to get you to thinking about what we're going to be talking about. And so I asked, what habits serve your inner hero? And I talked about a quote that Norman Schwarzkopf, General Norman Schwarzkopf, he took, and he said, shine shoes save lives. Well, and so that talks about then about the importance of discipline. And I asked, what habits of yours serve your life, and what habits help you to live a disciplined life? Because I think that discipline is one of those very important qualities for a hero to have. An undisciplined life is really a life of turmoil and a life that struggles. And so I issued a 30-day challenge, and that 30-day challenge then was challenging you to do something each and every day to take a little bit of courage and apply that courage in moving your life forward in a direction you want to go. Now, it could be something different each of the 30 days, or it could be 5 or 6 different things, or, you know, whatever it is, but every day be your own hero at the end of the day, where you can take and at the end of the day for each of 30 days, you can take and say to yourself, yes, this is what I did today. It was something that took some courage for me to do, and yet I went ahead and I did it, and I feel like I'm a hero for myself today. And so that was the challenge that I issued to you then, and if you haven't done that challenge, I would issue that challenge to you here today. And the habit that I introduced in that video is to create discipline in your life, having good habits rather than sloppy habits and lazy habits. And I talked about how easy it is for us to have sloppy habits and lazy habits, because you see, we all have habits, you know, and so they're not always good habits, and oftentimes they are sloppy and lazy habits. And I gave a lot of examples from my own personal life about habits and things that I've learned and evaluations I've done in my own life about my own habits. And so go back and look at week one of the 12-week series if you want to learn more about discipline, and also just this question that we asked in the beginning is, what habits serve your inner hero? And then going on to week two, I proposed the question, how many books did you read last year to help improve your life? Now, you see, I talked about my 15 reasons. Now, these are my top reasons. There are many more than just 15, but 15 of my top reasons for creating a daily reading habit. Reading for yourself, improvement and development rather than entertainment. You see, so many people read for entertainment, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine, and that's good too. But specifically, develop a habit each and every day to read for the purpose of self-improvement and development in your life. And in that video, I talked about not allowing your reality to hold you back. You see, because so often we allow what is today, our reality of our life, to hold us back. And if you really don't quite get that and don't understand that, then check out that video and get a better understanding of how you can not allow your own reality to hold you back. I wanted today, though, take and share with you an experience of a woman that I had a few conversations with. And this woman, she took and was an avid reader. She spends most of her free time reading or gaming. And so at first there was some positive elements in her personality that I found her to be an interesting person. But within a very few conversations, I cut the conversation off and just telling her that, I'm sorry, but you have too much baggage and too much drama that you bring into a conversation. I can't imagine what you bring into meeting someone in real life. And what I found out from her is that she spends a lot of time reading and a lot of time gaming. Those are her two greatest activities. But all that reading is for entertainment. All that gaming is for entertainment. And so much of that time spent with reading and gaming in her life really doesn't help to improve or develop her life. And therefore, some situations that she's had in her past, she continues to just drag that along and continues to embellish all the negativity in her life. And she lives in a place of tremendous negative energy. And so that's what I found personally, that developing a reading habit, it helps me to relieve stress and relax. But then a reading habit for self-improvement and self-development helps me to also live in a place of positive energy, in a place where I'm moving my life forward. I'm letting go of all that old baggage. And so go ahead, and the habit for that particular video of week was the habit of reading daily for self-improvement and development. I hope that you've started that habit. It's by one of the most important habits of the 12 that I mentioned in the 12-week video series. We're going on to week 3, and we asked the question, what are habits? And see, people know that we all have habits, but they don't know exactly, they don't understand them and how habits come into being. And many of our habits come from our past and our background and our culture around us. And much of that culture and background that creates our habits really don't serve our lives as sexually liberated, non-monogamous people. They serve the lives of monogamous people and dishonest people, but not people who are striving to be ethical and consensual and non-monogamous in their lives, where they value honesty and openness and truth. And so, we talked about then what are habits, and defining what are habits, how we get habits, and then we talked about tuning up your standards and raising your habits, or raising your standards rather, because you see, sometimes, like going back to video 1, week 1, where we have just lazy habits and we have bad habits. We talked about tuning up your standards and raising them a little bit. And don't give up on yourself. Allow yourself the freedom to fail. And there I gave an assignment for that week. And that was to rate yourself on 11 standards. And I gave a video link for each of the 11 standards. And there was in the description of that video that week, there was 11 standards, and each standard had one or more video links so that you could get a better grasp on it. But to rate yourself on a number scale, so you can kind of give yourself a checkup and know where you need to do some work at. And then the habit to develop that week is to create clear, objective standards that you rate and put a number on them. And so, if you can't put something where it's somewhat specific, where you can rate it, then you don't have a measurable objective. And so I think it's important to be able to measure it and actually put a number on it. Create clear and objective standards that you rate and put a number on it. That's the habit for week 3. Well, in week 4, we asked the question, does your creativity draw out your inner genius? We talked again, we've mentioned this many times in videos about how we have an inner genius that is really waiting to get out. It wants to show itself and show the genius that truly is you, a unique individual human being. And so we asked that question, does your creativity draw out your inner genius? And I gave an assignment and asked some questions to help you to identify things that you need to be doing to create the life that you desire in the next 90 days. Because I believe in taking small chunks and small bites of time instead of taking big chunks of time like a whole year. But take small chunks of time, and 90 days is a fairly small chunk of time to take, where you can then take and project yourself forward. I talked about in that video. Project yourself forward 90 days from now. What would be a perfect outcome for you to have in that 90 days that would truly get you just excited to be able to see that outcome? Well, I talk about that in that video, and then I talk about the habit for the week, and that is to write down your thoughts and your ideas, getting them out of your head. Because this whole idea of developing our inner genius, well, when we fill our minds with so much stuff and our thoughts are always going around, then sometimes that becomes a blockade of allowing that inner genius to truly express itself and to come out. And so it's really important to write down your thoughts and your ideas, write them down and get them out of your head. And then also mention a little bit about organizing those thoughts and ideas. Most of your thoughts and ideas that you write down, you'll never utilize. But it's just still really important to write them down. And I know myself, in cleaning out things from the last 35 years of my life, where I've been self-employed in business all my life. And now I'm going through a process of cleaning things out. In fact, I pulled a bunch of the records I had to, legally you have to keep certain records. And I kept records back from 1980s and, files and files and file boxes. And now it's at a point where I've got to pay a company to come by. It'll run me about $400 with these big shredding trucks. And then it'll toss all that stuff in and have it all shredded, because it's not stuff, it's, customer records and things of this nature. So it's not stuff that I can take and feel comfortable just throwing away. And so it's stuff that I need to have destroyed. And yeah, I got so much of it, it's going to cost me about $400 to have this shredding truck come by and get all that stuff shredded. But, one of the things that in this whole process, so I've come by files that I've created years ago where I would write down my ideas and getting them out of my head. And as I read through some of that, it just filled me with a lot of confidence and a lot of joy, knowing just to see how my mind works, and it just supports the fact that I know that there's genius and brilliance within myself, and there is within you too. And so writing down your thoughts and your ideas, getting them out of your head and onto the computer or onto paper and notebooks and things like that, and that's all very helpful. It's part of the process, even if it's stuff that you'll never end up using, but it's part of the process of bringing out your inner genius. And then if you ever have opportunity like I've had lately to go back and look at some of that stuff, then it just really makes you feel good about how your mind and process works. And then also you get a chance to see how far you have come in creating your life and developing your life. You've come a long ways. And so the habit for week number 4 is to write down your thoughts and ideas, getting them out of your head. Now moving on to week 5, we ask the question, is your life authentic and congruent in all areas? And I presented the habit for you to constantly challenge yourself. Because you see, if we don't constantly challenge ourselves, we just meander through life. And so with kind of in conjunction with that question, is your life authentic and congruent in all areas? So oftentimes we find that our life is just very inconsistent. And I use the example, I think, where my wife, when we first got married, about 36 years ago now, she's no longer living, but if she was 36 years ago now, she would get up and she would go off to work, and she would give her employer the best that she had to offer. And then she'd come home. In the first year of our marriage, within the first year of our marriage, I started having conversations with her, because she'd come home, she'd give her employer the best that she had to offer, and then she'd come home and give me less than the best. She didn't give me the worst that she had to offer, but she gave me less than the best. And that was very clear. And so, I talked about then being congruent and authentic in all areas of your life. And so that if you're in the habit of which is a good habit, of giving your best, then give your best in every area of your life. And so we talked about that week. That was week 5. And we talked about the benefits of challenging yourself. And then the habit that was given again was to consistently and regularly challenge yourself. Well, then week 6, we asked the question, do you see yourself as a leader? Because many people don't. And certainly that inner genius that is there waiting to get out, that inner genius has leadership traits and leadership qualities. And yet every one of us have had those leadership traits and qualities in our life at various times for various functions in our life. And so we talked that week about leadership and about that leader that each one of us has and is capable of being. And so the habit then I mentioned is to focus on solutions, not problems. So for that week, I challenge you to focus on solutions and not problems. I've always thought it's better to be part of a solution than to be part of a problem. And that, of course, is what leadership is about, is that leaders focus on solutions, not focus on problems. And so often people are afraid to step up into that leadership role because they're afraid of failure. And I talked about all of that on week 6 of this 12-week series. Week 7, we start out with a question, what is more valuable to you, your time or your money? You see, because there are so many of us that value our money, and we're careful about spending our money. We wouldn't want someone stealing our money. And yet, we allow people to steal our time from us all the time. We don't want to just go out and throw our money away. You know, I wouldn't take a $20 bill and throw it in the fireplace. Would you? And yet, will you take 20 minutes of your time every day and just waste it and not have it have any value to you at all? Many of us do, because we really don't think about our time in the same way as our money. But one of the big differences between time and money is you can increase the amount of money that you have flowing into your life, but you will never increase the amount of time you have flowing into your life. We all get the same amount of time. That's 24 hours a day. But you can certainly increase the productivity, and you can certainly increase what you actually get in exchange for that time and get things that are of greater and more value to you. I asked the question that week, how much time do you throw away without getting something of value for it? Now, of course, that's important then, and I also then talked about this, that you need to know what it is that you value. And think about that so that you can prioritize things. I asked another question that week, is your time spent keeping your life moving forward on the vision that you have for your life? And then just challenge you to manage your time well. And I gave an assignment to write down how you plan to spend your time, to measure it and evaluate it. And the habit for that week is manage your time and your money equally well. You know, if you just will spend a week thinking about that, of just having a habit, creating these habits of managing your time and your money equally well, you'll start to tune up that area of your life. Well, then week 8, we asked the question, I start out by saying, who are the people holding you back from being your authentic self? We all generally have people in our lives that are holding us back. But we don't like to really think about them and think about how they're holding us back. But if we don't, then it's hard really for us to be our own hero by just allowing other people to have that much influence or that much control over our lives. So I asked the question, who are the people holding you back from being your authentic best self? You see, we all have a mold in our life that it's kind of forming our lives. It's forming who we are. And for my own life, that mold oftentimes was really how other people were molding me. And I had to break out of that mold several times in my life, and I talk about that in that video. I talk about having a conversation with the people, and I gave information about how to have a conversation with the people who are holding you back and who are keeping you in that mold so that they no longer hold you back. I talked about how I walked away from religion. You know, because I used to be a very religious person, and not only was I very religious, I was really very actively involved in leadership areas within my religious community. And so I talked about the story of that and walking away from that. I talked about writing things down, as was the previous week's video, and how there's a website called 750words.com, and how they've found it's so helpful and so beneficial for us to just empty our brain and get our thoughts out and down on paper or on a computer file. The habit that I introduced was the habit of getting started and finishing it. You know, how often do you get started and don't finish things? I know that's something I have to be really mindful of. How about how often do you just not get started? You know, because we have fear that holds us back, or we just really don't want to think about things, or we're busy, you know. But we're busy. We all got 24 hours a day, and we're all busy. I don't care if you're sitting around eating bonbons and popcorn and watching TV all day long. You're busy. You're doing something watching with that 24 hours. But it comes down to how much we prioritize that time. That's what we talked about, remember, back in week 7. But week 8 then is the habit of getting started and finishing things. And so you have to understand then the value of your time and what you're going to use your time to start, and then when you start it, to go ahead and finish it. But it talked about how to chunk it down. You know, we can all focus on the big projects, the big things we want to get started on. You know, like I want to get started on making $20,000 a month. But, you know, I've got a long ways to go to get there. And so I chunk it down. For me, I chunk it down to 21-day periods of time. And by chunking it down to 21 days at a time, where I have 9 things that I work to accomplish each 21-day period. Now, do I always accomplish all 9 things? No, I don't. But I do keep moving forward this way by chunking it down. And I talked about that then in week 8. So have the habit of getting started and finishing. Week 9, I started with the question, how often do you put yourself to the test? You know, that's something that so often we don't think about. And certainly it comes from our monogamous culture, where in monogamy, you don't put your relationship to the test. You know, you don't go out there and get tempted by wanting to have sex or just wanting to emotionally be connected with another person. You know, you can't do that in monogamy. And so whether it be in your relationships, or whether it be financial area of your life, or your recreational pursuits, which, you know, for maybe for your sports and recreation, or also your health and fitness and your friendships, how often do you put yourself to the test? So I talked about that in week 8, but then I also talked about our hang-ups. And I said that hang-ups are not something to live with, but something to stretch and challenge you in overcoming them to have a fuller, more enjoyable life. And I talked about the opportunities that hang-ups give us. But so many people think of their hang-ups as being something that they get hung up on. And that's not something for you to do. You don't want to get hung up on your hang-ups. Instead, look at the opportunities that your hang-ups give you. And I talked about that in that week 9 video. And part of that then, when you think about your hang-ups, is confronting your own insecurities. And confronting your own insecurities so that you don't get hung up on your insecurities. The habit that I introduced to you for that week 9, is the habit of putting yourself to the test. So for a week, to work on this habit of putting yourself to the test, and it could be many areas of your life, but to put yourself to the test. And so we talked about that then in week 9. And again, all of these habits that we're talking about are things that are good for you to just continue to write them down. If you want to, you can go ahead and copy and paste the description here that's in this video, where I list all of these questions and these habits, and you can copy and paste that. Go back and look at the videos and watch those videos so that you have a chance to get more information about each week's conversation. Well, now week 10, we asked the question, do you know how to intentionally use the energy of your life to create the life of your dreams? Well, of course, that's a big question. And so I broke that down. I chunked it down. We talked about what it means to create the life of your dreams. It's so often people really don't understand, what it means to create the life of your dreams, really. I also then talked about what the energy of your life is, because the question, do you know how to intentionally use the energy of your life to create the life of your dreams? So I talked about what the energy of your life is. And then I talked about how to use the energy of your life to create the life of your dreams. And it's probably one of the most important videos that I've made. I've made, I don't know how many videos, 150, 200 videos in the last couple of years. They're all of them right there on my YouTube channel. And this week 10 video is, I think, one of the most important. I wouldn't say the most, because it's hard for me to say, oh yeah, it's more important than these others. There are about maybe 10 videos that are just, to me, I just think are really critical in you developing your non-monogamous, ethically and consensually non-monogamous, sexually liberated life so that you thrive in your life. And that's what these videos are all about, is to help you to have a life that is a life that thrives, and a life where you're developing and creating that genius that's within you, and then it's a sexually liberated, ethically and consensual, non-monogamous life of your dreams. I talked about how to use the contrasts, or also resistance and problems and issues in your life, in order to help you to know what it is that you want in your life. That contrast and resistance and the problems that we face in our life, and the issues and the difficulties maybe with other people's personalities and different things that come along in our life, those are all good. They're all part of our process and our journey to help us to be the best authentic person that we can possibly be. And if you learn to use all these things to your benefit, and they become positive energy in your life instead of becoming a negative energy that drags you down. One of the things I talk about is the fact that to be human is to err. And it's up to you if you err forward or err backwards, or just end up being stuck all the time. Because yes, make mistakes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. This goes back to the week that we talked about leadership and asked you about your being a leader. One of the things about being a leader I talked about in that video is that you've got to be willing to make a mistake. And that's the same thing that I talked about then and mentioned in this video, is be willing to be human, because to be human is to err. And it's okay to make mistakes. As you make those mistakes, so you want to stay in a place of pure positive energy. And when you do that, that can be a challenge, but practice makes it a lot easier. And I shared with you how that has been a challenge for me last year. And it's really kind of comical, because it was right after I made a video series on feeling good. And it was a series of videos about really feeling good, that I had one of the most challenging, probably 6-month period of my whole life, of being able to stay in a place of pure positive energy where I really was every day getting up and feeling good, because it wasn't happening every day. And so it was just really funny how that hit me right after making that video series last year. And I talked about how, though, that I continued to work it all the time, and being in this place of pure positive energy, and how even though that it was hard going for that 6 months time, but working on being in that place of pure positive energy, it seems to turn all the stuff that was negative and bad in that 6-month period of time and that was going on, it seems to turn it all and made it all really great. And so it's like that in your life too, is that you can take the power of positive energy and make it work for you, so that even when you get into those trying and difficult and challenging times, that you come out of that time of your life with everything really being great. Being on a journey of living your dream life is what we talked about, even when that dream life and being on that journey sometimes is tough. Talked a little more about how your thoughts, your feelings, and your words create your life. And of course, I've made a lot of videos on that, but we talked a lot more in week 10 there about how your thoughts, your feelings, and your words create your life. and how you don't want to get stuck and land on what is and allow that to keep you from moving forward and having what you want. Because what is now what was. And I talked a lot about that. Then the habit that I introduced was to intentionally use the energy to create the life you want rather than create more of the life that you have or more of the life that you don't want. And then I finished off with a question, and the question was, are you creating or killing the life of your dreams? You see, because so many people, they really are killing the life of their dreams instead of creating the life of their dreams. I hope you're creating the life of your dreams. Well, in week 11, I start out with the question, in what ways does fear impact your life? And I shared then a lot about my own life again, because my own life has had a lot of impact from fear. And so I talked about that. And then the habit that I introduced was for you to practice fearlessness that week. And how are the different areas that you can practice fearlessness in? You can have the conversations that you fear with people. And you can do the things that you fear. And so I challenge you to have those conversations that you fear and to do those things that you fear. And then week 12, which was the final week in the series, I finished it with the question, how well do you listen? You see, I talked then about how growth begins with a seed and where those seeds come from that we then grow in our own lives. Where those seeds come from. I asked another question then. It says, are you thriving and growing or going stale, stagnating, and dying? I gave some tips because on handling criticism, because sometimes, we have people with this idea of listening, and we have people that we listen to that are there to just chop us down at the knees. They just want to chew us up. And so it's like, yeah, they could be totally wrong with all the criticism that they're giving us. They could also be delivering it wrong. Or they could be doing both. They could be delivering it wrong and be totally wrong. They could be calling us all kinds of things and just trying to chop us down. And I talked a little bit about then what to do with that kind of criticism. I also talked about how we can benefit more from criticism than we can from people that are building us up and saying really great, favorable things about us, and how you can then benefit from the criticism of others. And of course, if you're not listening, then you have a hard time ever hearing the criticism. And so the habit that I introduced that week was to increase your awareness in all areas, in all ways. And so that was just a week ago for video 12 of 12 weeks. And so I ask you today, did you increase your awareness in all areas, in all ways? You see, because one of the things that I talked about is I said for the last couple of years, I've been studying the steps and the processes that we need to go through in order to really grow and thrive in our lives. And I hope that we're always growing in our life, not getting stale and stagnant or leveling off. I hope you're always growing. I don't ever want to be able to say, well, my best years financially, or my best years with health and fitness, or my best years with my recreational pursuits, or my best years with sex, or my best years with my love and my friendships. And I don't want to ever just look back and see that my best years are always behind me. I want to be able to look forward and see that they're in front of me. And as long as you stay in a growth process in your life, you can always be looking forward and seeing the best is yet to come. And so the first thing that's kind of the first step, the foundation, in fact, it's the cornerstone I talked about here in week 12 of that growth is awareness. And where that awareness comes from, there are three areas that awareness comes from. And so I talked about those three areas that the awareness comes from. And so I hope that you'll start to be more aware in your own life. Now, here in the near future, we're going to be making a video series about some of the other steps, some of the other critical, important steps in growth and in developing your life so that you can thrive in having the life of your dreams and having that life be a sexually liberated, ethically and consensually non-monogamous life. So thanks a lot for listening to me here in this video, but I hope that you'll go through and go back and watch some of those other videos, because they're all, I mean, like I said, I got so inspired myself in watching those videos here over the last couple of days, and something that I think I need to continually remind myself. Or you can also go ahead and just copy and paste from the description in this video the notes that I've got here, and that may be something you can put into a document for yourself for your own reminder. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I'm Non-Monogamous Mark, and I forgot to mention, in fact, that I'm the co-founder and executive director of Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association. And Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association is an association, it's a nonprofit association for freedom and relationship seekers, and people who are wanting to increase their abundance, their liberation, and their freedom with their finances, with their health and fitness, with their relationships, with their recreation, and with their sex lives. We want you to be able to live a life that's abundant, liberated, and free in all of those areas. So Non-Monogamous Lifestyles is a nonprofit association for sex and relationship freedom seekers, and I hope that includes you. And if it is, go ahead and click on that link right there at the top of the description, and that'll take you over where you can get on our email list. And so that as we have things that we want to communicate with you, that you can get further tools and further opportunities available to you, things that we are going to be rolling out here in the future, that you'll be the first to know about those things as well. And so click on that link and get on our email list. But then also give this video a like. I'd really appreciate that. Go ahead right now, just right up there. Yep, click on that. Yep, and give this video a like. And while you're doing that, then subscribe to the channel. And then come down a little farther into the comments, and please go ahead, if there's nobody that's commented yet, then be the seed that gets it started and make that first comment. If there's other people who have commented, then go ahead and add your comment as well. Maybe you have a question. If you have a question, I'll be happy to go ahead and respond to your question. But whether it's a comment or a question, I appreciate you going ahead and making it right there in the little box below. So thanks a lot. Enjoy the rest of your week.